Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scotcast. I'm Scary, your grateful host, and this is the weekly Warhammer show, or the weekly show, which I do every single week on Fridays for Patreons. The Denizen community is what fuels me making content. I don't have a battle report this week, so instead, what I'm doing is I'm opening the vault and allowing all of you to watch the Patreon show as a little bit of a tidbit. So you can kind of like wet the whistle, if you will say, into what you get behind the scenes as one of the cool little perks for helping me make content and for, all the cool stuff that the Desert community does. Now, on the show, there's two parts to it. One, I answer questions. So you can ask topics, questions. There is a live chat on today as well, so I'll be getting to those. And the second part of the list crunch, the show is list crunch, where Patreons get to submit a Warhammer 40k army list or an Age of Sigmar army list or something, and I get to break it down. I give you my thoughts, and it kind of like give you like tidbits, food for thought, and hopefully it helps you develop a list. It's like a fix your list sort of thing. And yeah, so welcome. Thanks a lot for coming and hanging out on Friday. This weekend is a Team Canada practice weekend. So after the show, I'm essentially packing and driving 4.5 hours to go to Ottawa. I'll be at the Red Dragon in Ottawa, and we'll be practicing. Basically, all of Team Canada will be there, and this is like the first full Canadian practice we've had ever, which is going to be really cool. Now, I'm not personally going to the WTC because I decided to take some family time this summer, and but I should be hopefully going back next year. But I'm still going to help the team practice. I'm missing out on the TGX, which is a very large major tournament in Mississauga for this. But I want Team Canada to succeed. And yeah, other than that, that's kind of like what's happening. So what happened to me this week? Well, let's give you like a little bit of an update. This week, as the last 4 weeks, have been crazy busy. I've been going to mini wargaming 3 or 4 days a week for the last 4 weeks. I helped a lot with the Age of Sigmar release, helping with content, filming, and production. I also have written an entire narrative campaign where I'm going to be running Luca's going to be running his Necrons, and I've built this whole campaign around Necrons, like essentially like the machinations of reawakening the world. But bum bum bum, who's the antagonist? It's Archon Skari and his real space raid. So that's going to be exciting. We start filming that next week. It's going to be 8 to 10 games, and the way that mini wargaming does their like narrative games or narrative, so it's a full narrative. I'm going to be filming, I think, 1 or 2 videos that will go out to the public. The rest of them will be in what's called the mini wargaming vault. However, for all of you folks that support me on Patreon, I'll be making sure that every single one of those videos that I film for the narrative campaign will also be available on the Patreon page. So that tends to happen with anything I do that goes behind a paywall with other sort of like services. Is if I help produce it or anything, I make sure it's available for all my Patreons as well, just because you're awesome and you get all the additional content that I'm in. Hopefully, the only time that didn't work was with Tabletop Tactics, which made me sad. But they're a monster. All in as in like a good. They're like a not a monster. That sounded wrong. It's a big machine, and it's hard to provide like raw video files or like the ability for me to download their content from their paywall. So that's gonna be something that I'm really excited about. Another thing is I'm gonna be doing a Masterclass Drukhari Masterclass. It's going to be a 5-session coaching 5-session coaching series on the art of war, and it's going to be for a group of 8 to 10 people. I think there's like a limit of 10 tickets, which you can purchase on the art of war, and it's going to be a series where starting late July 29th, I think. It's going to be every Monday morning. We're going to be doing I'm going to be doing a deep dive into Drukhari and breaking down everything. It's going to be like a full masterclass on Drukhari, which, once again, I will be making available to my Trueborn and Incubi level Patreons once that gets released as well, as a full coaching thing, which will be really, really fun. Other than that, that's kind of what's happening in my world. I played Spearhead this week, Age of Sigmar Spearhead. I played Ravage Star this week. I also played an old world game this week, which was really fun. I played Bretonnian Peasants. I love a Bretonnian peasant list. Anyway, so I've crazy busy week, and I've done a bunch of coaching calls, and now I'm home. And last night, of course, every Thursday night, we play computer games with all the Patreons. So if you're a Patreon and you want to play computer games with us, we tend to play Thursday nights like 10 p.m. Eastern, and we play Gladius, which is a civilization style game with a 40k skin, and it is so much fun. And we beat the crap out of each other for a couple of hours every Thursday night. It's a blast. It's an absolute blast. I do want to give a shout out to everybody who's at ATC this weekend, because that's going to be a super fun time. And that's essentially everything that happened this week. So that's a little update of what's going on with me. I have my entire Dark Eldar collection back here that I'm ready to pack for this this practice weekend for Team Canada. You know, I've got stuff I'm not allowed to talk about over there. I've got I wanna do a lot of work building a brand new display board. I've got so many things that I'd like to work on essentially. So looking very, very excited. Okay, let's jump into chat. Good morning, Alex, Hams, Tack, Dorian, Zinth, Nikki. Welcome, Harborn. Thanks a lot from Vortex Games, without whom I would not have a monitor on my computer. So thank you very much, Harborn. Huge shout out to Vortex Games, who's allowed me to do so much. They're in New Brunswick, gaming store. Check them out. They're really, really cool. Hello, Jordan, Nactalope. What's going on? It's like everybody's hanging out today. It's really exciting. I love it. Make sure you leave a like on this video, comment if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you want more, and that's it. Yeah. Anyway, let's dive into some of the questions. I'll be bouncing back and forth, so I'll give you my thoughts, and then we'll go through, and then there's a bunch of different lists as well to go over as well. So, Hit Suji says, do multiple Archons get the Vect ability? So as it was written raw, yes. Yes, they do. It basically replaced the entire rule with a different rule. However, that's definitely not the intent of the rule. Now, the World Team Championship has ruled that only the Warlord gets the rule to be then replaced, which I think is the appropriate way to play that. So I would play it that only your Warlord Archon gets the aura. That's how I would play it. I played it one time with all of the Archons getting it, and it was silly. So I just say use it on your Archon Warlord and don't push it. Don't push it. Okay? Don't be a jerk face. But other than that, like the key to anything like this is double check with your event. No matter what you're playing or what event you're at, just double check with your event. It literally takes 2 seconds for you to double check that. But that's it. I hope that answers your question. Like, honestly, I think Archons, that ability is quite strong. It allows you to have like one Archon that is a Warlord with a bubble, and then have the other Archon with something like the Nightmare Shroud to prevent Overwatch. So on one end, you can have one Archon that goes up and goes, well, if you want to Overwatch me, it's 2 CP. And on the other end, you have an Archon that's just like no Overwatch. So you have like a Disruption Archon and then an Archon that's like more of a scalpel. They can be like, pow, just go in and do some damage, you know, that sort of thing. Dorian says Nightmare Shroud and Warlord Archon. There you go. See, we're on the same page. He says, yep, exactly right. On to the next question. Meadows asks, after all the talk, how much do you think battle line actually matters? That's a good question. I'm finding it very relevant, but I play battle line heavy armies like Genesteel Cult, Witch-centric Dark Drukhari. Do you think it's enough of an incentive to warp list building for armies with poor battle line units? That's a great question, Meadows. So battle line in Pariah Nexus gets the ability to sort of like have cool things happen in certain mission special rules. So if you go to the Pariah Tournament Companion, there'll be a variety of different mission combinations, and some of the mission rules allow you to, number one, bring in battle line from reserve a turn earlier, so like turn 1. Number 2, allow you to shoot and or be in engagement range and do actions with battle line. Number 3, be able to fall back or advance and do actions with battle line. And I think those are like the main ones out of 10. There might be one more. Or then there's one where they get extra victory points by putting up banners on objectives. By holding like any objective, you get like an extra secondary point. So it like helps you with scoring. It helps you with versatility. It means that like any guns or things, like any points invested in battle line for guns and whatnot, in certain missions you get to use all of their guns, so they're like a more efficient way of like doing an action or scoring or being maneuverable and being able to like speedy and get advanced places and stuff like that. And so, you know, there's a lot of different things that kind of work with that as well, which means that you have to not necessarily completely change the list that you're building for battle line, but making sure that I think it's useful to have. I don't think it's a must. But then there's also what? There's one big secret mission that revolves around battle line, right? Kill all your opponent's battle line, and then have one of yours sort of like touching the opponent's deployment zone. So if you don't take battle line, you open up that option for your opponent like instantly, right? If they need a secret mission. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is you kind of need to have battle line to sort of prevent your opponent from scoring like easily certain things, but also allowing you to take advantage of some of the stuff. Now, some armies have fantastic battle line. Some armies already built entire competitive armies around battle line. So you're looking at Thousand Suns, right? Rubric Marines or battle line. Dark Eldar, that's one of the, you know, Dark Eldar literally build their armies around Cavalry Warriors, Witches, and Racks, right? Which is battle line. And I think it and things like Genesteel Cult, which have a lot of battle line, or something like Guard and things like that as well, that have a lot of battle line. Now, do you skew into it? Like if you're a Space Marine player, do you go, oh, I'm just going to run intercessors from now on? Like, not necessarily, but it does mean you have to like take them as an option just to prevent it. So it's just an allocation of resources. You know what I mean? I don't think it's the end of the world, but I don't think it's like uber powerful, but I do think it's useful to have, if that makes sense. Jordan says, I had a fun move Wednesday night where I moved my Warlord closer to a Hellbrute so my Scourge could pop out and shoot it without Overwatch happening. Nice. That's awesome. That does not mean today I will not be using the Raw rules, says Dorian, because I'm playing against a person who insists on Raw. Hey, as long as you're on the same page about things, you know what I mean? Which makes sense to me, right? Vanguard Nids can abuse the secret mission more than Drukhari. Yes, especially with like bouncing up and down and like teleporting. There's a lot of different, like I feel the meta is in a fantastic place, if you ask me. There's lots of different options. You've got lots of different like ways to build lists. I think it works really well. Chaos Space Marine lists are cultists, 2 to 4 legionnaires, nurglings, possibly war dogs. It's nutty versus other armies because I'm assuming you have lots of battle line. That makes sense. And Barnyard Jack, what's going on, Jack? Hey, how's it going? It's 12 o'clock at night. You should be going to bed. How are you up so late? Just dropping by to remind you the nicest person on YouTube. That is all. Well, thank you, Jack. That means a lot, man. I appreciate it. I actually had someone from your neck of the woods. Hey, Caliph, what's going on? I had someone, Jack, from your neck of the woods message me today on Instagram being like, I do mats, and I sent one to Barnyard Jack, and I would like to send you a mat. I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. So I can't wait to check out these cool measurement mats or whatever he called them. It was great. Okay. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Meadows. On to the next one. Swollen asks, what do you think explains our high win rates right now? What changed enough to make us top tier for the first 2 Pariah Nexus weeks? Well, anybody who's playing Dark Eldar right now, who just went to a tournament, has probably been playing Dark Eldar for a while and has a lot of practice. And all of a sudden, our army got good at playing the missions. Like, Pariah Nexus just vibes with Dark Eldar. That, and they might have learnt the value of the Void Raven Bomber from a certain someone, potentially. All in all, I think the folks, like, there were 10 people that played, and the 10 people that played, there were 2 event wins, and people who've been playing Dark Eldar now are dedicated Dark Eldar players. They're people who are going in and have been playing Dark Eldar and Drukhari for a long time, even when we were not the best army. So the folks that took that army have been practiced with it. They practiced. They probably have a very similar list, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, it just vibes with them. We have Battle Line in our list. We've got MSU. We've got good shooting. We have decent combat. Like, we play the missions well. I'm not surprised we did well. Now, is it good? Like, people are going to see that 70% win rate, and what is our faction rate going to go from 0.7% of the meta, 0.5% to 2% of the meta, and then our win rate drops to like 50%? Maybe. We'll see. At the end of the day, I won't read too much into it. If it persists, then I get to play Hellions more to bring the win rate down. We all get to play Hellions. I could put out a call to all of the Dark Eldar players. Bring Hellions. Yeah, let's tank our win rate so we don't get nerfed. That sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing that I'd be doing. Jack says, oh, they're bloody awesome. I have deployments on them, but they're blended in to look thematic. Great design. Lovely bloke. Love it. Always a pleasure to catch you. Keep on being a legend. Good night. Good night, Jack. Thanks for coming to hang out. Hellions are amazing. I don't care what anyone says. Hellions are okay. They're good. They're okay. They're not bad. They just, they have to go around buildings, which is always annoying. But, they're okay. If they had, like, Lance or a 5-up invul or OC2, like, they just need one thing to make them, like, decent, They've got decent shooting. They've got okay combat. They're fast, whatever. It's fine. They're just, they're just a little too expensive for what you get. Atlas says, how do I go about getting a question answered? Well, you can post it in the chat today, Atlas. Or there are a couple of ways you can get a question answered by being a Patreon. So every Thursday, I post a thread on the Patreon page, open to Patreons, where you can post a question, and I answer questions every single week. And there's a thread on the Patreon exclusive Discord that is that we post every week as well, and you post your question on there. And then I compile all the questions, boop, I put them onto this little document, and if I did miss the question because it got posted too late, I will probably get to it next week as well. But of course, we're in chat, so you can always ask something in chat today. Have you faced the new demons, says the Claw Gang. Their enhancements go hard. Now graders have Aura Shadow. Yep. Yeah. Soul Stealer returning 3 wounds per model destroyed is nuts. Yeah, I haven't played any demons yet, but it wouldn't be too different than playing demons before, to be honest. You just have to make sure that you don't send Incubi into greater demons so that you don't force them to take a Battle Shock test, which they pass, and then they automatically heal because of your Incubi Battle Shock mechanic, which is silly. Void Raven Bombers against Orc is a good idea for Meganobs. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Void Raven Bombers are fantastic against Meganobs. Radio Magic says, morning. First time catching you live. Thank you for the Dark King content. You're very welcome. By the way, all the content I create is literally thanks to the Patreons, without whom I wouldn't have the ability to do what I do. So you should be thanking all the denizens of the denizen community. In friendly games, should we spend 2 movements to pivot our vehicles? Do you think we have an unfair advantage? No. I think the pivoting rules are fine. It's like, I played 3rd edition. 3rd edition was like, you deployed like this on the deployment line, and you did this, and then you move forward. It's kind of like goes back to that in a lot of ways. Okay, on to the next question. Hopefully that answered your question, Swollen. I talked about that a little bit. Ryan Smith asks, hello again. Hello, Ryan Smith. I was curious as to the order in which you kill off your court cabal. Oh, that is a great question. Do you kill the Cabalites first? Also, do you give that unit the 4 guns and the leader with the blast pistol? Awesome question. Now, this is a more esoteric Drukhari question. But yes, my Court of the Archon goes with the Splinter Cannon, Dark Lance, Shredder, Blaster, and the Saberite with the Blast Pistol, Phantasm Grenade Launcher, and the Close Combat Weapon. Put together with the Archon, it's a 10-man unit. I put them in a Raider. Okay. Now, the order in which I kill off my Court and Cabalite unit is actually something I take very seriously game to game. And it's one of those very specific things that if you know, you know, right? It's kind of like when you're shooting stuff. Like when you're shooting, it's like but the opposite direction. So when you're shooting the court, you have to understand that you have to shoot the different weapons in different orders every single time depending on your target, right? Like if you're shooting at a unit of Terminators that has a Terminator that has taken, say, 3 wounds and has 1 wound remaining, you don't start by shooting a Dark Lance, right? You start by shooting the Medusa or the Shredder, right? Or the Carbine from the Slith to try and knock off that 1 wound with a 1 damage weapon, right? Then if they have a full wounded model, then you do like the Dark Lance to try and kill a full model, right, with a Dark Lance. Then you maybe do the Blaster or the Blast Pistols, etc., etc. So just as much as you do that based on where they're allocating their wounds, because do you need to get through the cover? Like, did you shoot the Carbine and then they allocated it to the guy in cover? Then you shoot the Blast Pistols next to try get through the cover, you know what I mean? And try kill that model so then the next one cannot be onto the cover. It's a lot of little nuances when it comes to like that sort of thing that a lot of people don't really think about, but I do. If you kill off all the Cabalites, don't the court lose their buff? That's a great question too, Jordan. I believe that the court models are just part of the unit as long as the Archon is leading the unit. I don't think... So, like, as long as the Archon's in the unit, they get all the buffs. Like, the Archon in the unit gets the buffs because he's leading the unit. But I tend to try and keep the Sergeant for the Cabalites alive as long as humanly possible because of the grenade keyword. Just having grenades is super important, right? So that tends to be one of the last models I kill, is the Sergeant. The other 4 models of Cabalites I tend to kill depending on if my opponent is shooting me with like multi-damage weapons. So if my opponent is shooting me with multi-damage weapons, I tend to put it on the Cabalites because the court have 2 wounds each. And especially if they don't have a lot of AP and I'm potentially in cover, because then the Cabalites have a 4-up save, which goes to a 3-up in cover. So they tend to like get a little bit more of an oomph, right, in that sort of thing. So, and I'll get to your question, Atlas, as well. So, you know, like I think it tends to be pretty normal that I killed the Medusa first. Because the Medusa, it tends, like the battle shock mechanic and the flamer is good. And if they have a lot of infantry, and I might want to overwatch, I keep the Medusa alive, but a lot of the time, the Medusa is the first one to die. Another key to note is all the court models have a 5-up invulnerable save. So if anything is pushing me to an invul save, I try and use the 5-up invul save on the court to keep the court alive, if that makes sense. Because it like a 6-up invul to a 5-up invul, like it doubles their durability. So that tends to be like a little nuancy thing as well. But it is a case-by-case basis, so I can't really be like, oh my goodness, this is exactly how it's going to be every single time. You know what I mean? So very, very cool. And I really, really like that sort of like thought process that goes into it. Now, as it goes through, I tend to kill the Slith and or Lamian first, and the last one I kill is the Urgle from the court, because I love fights first. Like, having fights first on that Archon means that even if somebody charges into you, you get like that last little strike in. And so it tends to be like 4 Cabalite Warriors, the Medusa, right? And I don't necessarily go all 4. I go 1 and 1. I'll go, I'm going to take 1 save on a Medusa. Failed. Okay, another save on a Medusa, passed. Another save on a Medusa, passed. Another save on a Medusa, failed. Dead Medusa. Okay, I've got so many more. Okay, I'm going to do 3 on Cablites. Kill the Splinter Cannon, the Shredder, right? Keep the Blaster, the Dark Lance. Then move on to the Slith, because they don't have anything else to shoot me, so the -1 to wound is not going to be as important. So I'm like, okay, kill the Slith, so saves on the Slith. Okay, then do I need the lethals? Do I not need the lethals? So it kind of goes down that sort of like trail of thinking path as well. So, but I hope that answers your question, Ryan. Yeah, and the ideal court is one that doesn't get targeted. So jump out of a raider, go kill something, use Wraith-like retreat to jump back into said raider, and stay alive. And do that multiple turns in a row. And if you can do that multiple turns in a row, you're off to the races. That's going to take some mental reps to burn into. Yes, absolutely. It takes a practice, right? If you're willing to share your secret, says Atlas, I play Imperial Knights. I feel like the Dark Eldar matchup is super hard unless it's Purge. With Scourges shooting and scooting, then Incubi cleaning up, then jumping back into the boats. Yes. Yes. Imperial Knights are not a game that I feel nervous about anymore. I think the key is making sure that you build a balanced knight list with things that kill Dark Eldar. So like, and I feel a lot of knight players just rush you, and that's like the worst. That's like bad for them. Another thing is like putting in allies, like assassins and things like that. Like you have to put in stuff that's more than just knights that can go and do stuff. And of course, don't spend as many points on big knights. Try and use more on small knights. Like Helvrins are very good. Helvrins are excellent into Dark Eldar. But like, building a balanced list is probably more important than anything. And if you can kill the Scourge, you can, but like killing the Scourge is hard. So like using things like strategic reserves, so you can come out on like an angle to try like kill something. And the last thing is kill all the boats. Like just kill boats. Kill the boats. Kill the boats. Stop worrying about everything else. Kill the boats. Like Darklance Scourge are not really that effective into knights. It's the Haywire you have to worry about. So prioritize any Haywire. And if they don't have Haywire, you can bully them a little bit better. But I hope that helps you, Atlas, with your as you try to beat the Dark Kin. Afternoon, says Craig. First time managed to catch you live. Perks to working from home today. That's fantastic, Craig. Thanks for coming to hang out. Nikki appreciates all the learning. Awesome. Poor boats. Yeah, you have to kill the boats. Would you ever consider 2 courts on a list, or is it something you just like one of? I have built a few lists with double court. And I do like it for Pariah, mainly because they are battle line, right? Like a court with Cabalites and an Archon becomes battle line. So you can do a whole bunch of stuff like do actions and shoot, and like things like that, which is kind of fun. Which is like probably one of the only examples where it's good, or raise banners or whatever. So it's like this little perk. They also have fights first, which is very good, especially with a 1 CP heroic intervention. So it really helps in certain matchups, or against surge moves. Like fights first is fantastic into surge moves, because you can be like, oh, those Khorne Berserkers, well, I'm going to screen you, or those Thunderwolf Cavalry, I'm going to screen you with my court. I'm going to shoot you with something to try and take some damage down, like a Void Raven Bomber, to like do some damage, and then you surge right into my fights first, right? And then I just fight you anyway. So it's like, there's some cool technical tips and tricks that you can use for that as well. No problem, Atlas. Thanks for coming to hang out. Franco says, painting Beastmasters and Beasts for tournament tomorrow. Let's hope I see enough of your videos. Beast pack equals best pack. That is a mantra to live by. My boats have a life expectancy measured in minutes. I need to get better at hiding them around corners. Yep. If you keep your boats alive, you win. Yeah. Harborn from Vortex Games says, non-Dark Eldar question. I know you've done new AOS at Mini Wargaming. What's your initial thoughts on it? Oh, that's a great question. I am really enjoying the AOS mechanics. The play is very straightforward. I love the new mission format. Like, I love the point scoring. I haven't played enough of the missions to understand how it works, but I really liking things like countercharge and being able to cast a spell in your opponent's hero phase, or being able to like reactive move any unit now and then sort of like set up plays that are like reactive move countercharge, things that can be very intense and very good. So hold on one second. Sorry, that was my son asking me to go to a friend's house today. Ollie. No problem, Alex. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, I'm going to be heading out, so I had to say goodbye to him because I'm going to Ottawa for the Team Canada practice. Other than that, I hope that answers your questions. So yeah, Harborn, I really like the new AOS. I need to play my Sylvaneth. I played with the Hedonites, and they were like crazy fast. Very different mechanics with summoning. But stay tuned for more of that. I think it'll be very fun. And then probably me and Lionel from X Planet will play a lot of AOS as well, stuff like that. Okay, that brings the question portion down. So the next part to the weekly show is the list crunch. So the list crunch is a chance for you to develop an army list, whether it's for 40k, AOS. We've had folks put in lists for Blood Bowl and Necromunda and a bunch of different game systems as well. But the whole point of this is you post a list and I read it, and for a couple of minutes just give you my thoughts, my basic thoughts, so that you can essentially take that food for thought and continue to develop your list. Now, if you're a Scourge level Patreon, a Trueborn level Patreon, or one of the Incubi level Patreons, you get to submit a list every single week. You can post it on the Patreon thread that I post up every Thursday, or there is a thread that is ongoing during the week on the exclusive Patreon Discord, where you can post a list, and then I read it and tell you what I think. And it's a way for you to tap in to sort of my thought process. And I'm not going to make you a perfect list, but I might help you develop one, right? So hopefully you use that to your advantage as well. Brian from the Other Guys 40K podcast. Hello, Brian. What's going on? Good luck with the WTC prep this weekend. Thank you. Gonna miss you at TGX. Maybe not your Void Raven bombers. Well, I had to give someone else a chance to win it, said the smug Drukhari player with a 90% win rate. Hello, Taldra. What's going on? No, Brian. I hope you have a ton of fun. Take lots of pictures. I can't wait to watch the breakdown that you do on the event and stuff. Have tons of fun. I know it's going to be great as well. So. Using our stratagems is pretty CP intensive. Are we better off holding back until turns 3 or 4 before jumping around? Turn 2. You can start turn 2. Turn 2, turn 3. Like, the only need, move, get out of a transport strat. That's one strat. Then jump back into transport. That's 2. So you basically need 2 CP every turn to do, like, shenanigans. If you have a third CP, it's great for, like, a grenade or a tank shock or a vicious blades or a 4-up or a night shield, right? Those are the kind of ones that you really are looking at. Okay. Let's dive in, shall we? Rogue Nation posted a Votan list. So this is an Oath band, of course, with one Enrir champion and Uthar the Destined. Nice, so he's like the big guy. 2 units of Hearthkin Warriors. Now, it's funny because I've been doing some coaching with folks that have been playing some Votan, and I will tell you right now that, they are, like, the more people play with Votan, the more they find that, like, Hearthstone Warriors had kind of, like, taken a back seat, but now people are like, oh, I think 2 units of 5 it isn't really enough. So they've been like, how can I squeeze in that second unit of Hearthkin Warriors? So it's nice that you posted that second unit, as long as you can split them with Sagittars. So you do have 2 Sagittars here. I'm assuming to split the Hearthkin Warriors. 2 units of Berserkers, 1 2 units of 5 Hearthguard. I do think the units of 5 Hearthguard are better than the big 10s, right? I do think that's the key. You do have the Plasma Guns and the Volcanites. Okay, so 1 Plasma, 1 Volcanite. Cool. 2 Land Fortresses, and then 1 unit of 6 Pioneers, and then 2 units of Jaegers. Okay, so the 2 units of Infiltrators, so this here, this, boop, 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 and then this here. And then, so I like the Hecatons, I like the Hearthguard, I like the Berserkers, I like the Sagitaurs, I like this. The only place where I see like wiggle room with this list in terms of what I like to see is I would like to see the Pioneers split into 2 units of 3. Personally, I think smaller units of bikes are better. I do not think you need 2 units of infiltrating Jaegers. I think you can get away with 1 unit. I know 80 points is a steal. They have good AP in combat. Like, they're actually, like, decent models, decent units. I personally just think you need 1, though, so you could use the extra points here to put in another unit of 3 Pioneers. So you could do 3 units of 3, which I think in the long run with their bouncing in and out of the board, I think is just in general better. As for the Hecaton land fortresses, if you did that, that would leave you 60, no, it's 80, 180, is it 90 points for that? Oh, so you actually would need 10 points. Maybe dropping one of the enhancements would give you enough points for that. If you did, that's where my head goes. You know what I mean? Oh, you do have a big brick of 10 Berserkers here. See, I don't think you need 10. Unless in your meta is like you have to murder something dead. But, I would probably find 100 points there to put in 100 points. Actually, you could probably drop 5 Berserkers, drop 1 unit of these dudes, right? And then you could actually fit in 2 units of 3 Pioneers and keep the 6. So you have like 1 big unit of bikes that can like Daka, and then you have 2 more units of bikes that can go around and do stuff. But that's just me. I'm a sucker for those bikes. Hopefully that gives you a bit of food for thought for your list. But over than that, the fact that you have the access to the infiltrating squad now, those like little Jaegers, I think is freaking-tastic. They're very, very good. Moving on to the next list by Constantine. Constantine says, "Hi Scary, thinking about Votan for 5-player team event in September. Terrain will be probably Games Workshop, but not WTC." Okay, so similar Games Workshop terrain, that's fine. That does open up a lot more Votan plays, because then your Hecatons can be a little bit more like aggressive when it comes to fighting like stuff, like being in angles and whatnot. But we have an Iron Master, so you're going more for like the Healy stuff. Champion. I do love the champions. I think they're one of the best combat units in the book. I do love the champion with the little feather or whatever that gives him the come back to life. I love that guy. That guy is money. 1 unit Hearthkin, 2 units of Hearthkin, 4 Sagitaur, so splitting the Hearthkin plus I'm assuming 5 Berserks in each. Well, you've got 5 Berserks, 5 Berserks, 10 Berserks. Thunderkin. I'm not a fan of Thunderkin, but I guess, in a pinch. 2 Fortresses, 6 Pioneers, and the Jaegers. Okay, so very similar to that first dwarf list that we saw. I love the Jaegers. They have to stay. You need them for like different matchups. The biggest thing that I would see where you could find points is I don't like this unit. I'm not sure why you need this unit. And this unit can be 5 or dropped completely. But I could see why you want that in like a fortress and then like this in potentially a fortress as well, right? So you've got like extra units, but I don't think you need it. I think you can get away with just 3 units of 5 Berserks. Gives you a whole other 100 points. So you could literally put in more Pioneers. The bikes are money. They are money. Take more Pioneers. They are so good. They bounce around the board. They do actions. They have decent amount of shots. They're fast. I like them. Yeah. But yeah, very similar to basically what I said before. Now, of course, with this guy, of course, which is this guy, boop, you can do you can keep your stuff alive or whatever, which is fine. You know, that's another thing. You don't necessarily need the Iron Master. You know, so you drop the Iron Master, you drop the Thunderkin, and then all of a sudden you've got, what, 170 points that you could put somewhere else. You could probably put another champion in. You could do, like, there's so many things you could do with those points, right? And then if your fortress dies, they die. Like the key is, like, the fortresses either die or they just never die. So like the Iron Master seems a little redundant, right? If that makes sense. Because if you go into a matchup where they're going to kill your fortresses, it doesn't matter if you have an Iron Master. Your fortresses are just going to die. And if you go into a matchup where you don't get the fortresses killed, then the Iron Master becomes redundant. That's, you know, I'm nitpicking here, but that's like where my brain goes. Rashius says, "Good morning, Scary. Happened to see you were live. Cool hearing your takes on the lists." Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rashius. I do this for Patreons every week. It's a great, I love it. List Crunch is one of my favorite parts of the week because it's like a healthy dose of List Crunch-Os, right? That's why we call it List Crunch. It's like a bowl of cereal on a Saturday morning, you know? Ah, delicious. Okay. On to the next one. Andrew Leonard with a list says, an RTT with a break from Drukhari. Interested in using my Xenomorph Nids. Nice. I will say Tyranids got a major boost in the new update. I really like to see, like, it's like a simple boost, but it's like a boost enough for boosting. So we have an invasion fleet with a Neuro Tyrant. I hope there's Zoanthropes in here. Old One Eye, the Swarmlord. Very straightforward. Swarmlord is actually really good. I really like his mechanic, extra CP. He's like relatively inexpensive. He's tough. I like him. He's very, very good. Then we've got Gargoyles, 2 units of them. They're fantastic. 2 units of Hormagaunts. They're fast. They're maneuverable. They're extra strength now, so they're decent in combat. And then we've got a unit, a Bivor. I love how, like, the Bivor, the Spore Mines took a hit, but they still score you engage, you know, that sort of thing. So you could totally still do stuff with them. You know, they're also really good at, like, stopping people from advancing. So if, like, somebody has, like, Wolf Jail or whatever, and you're like, they have an advance in charge, you know, or like Custodes, where it's like advance in charge, you're like, I'm going to put spores here, so you cannot advance into this area. So, like, you can prevent advance and charges. It's very, very, very powerful in, like, very key sort of, like, matchups, which I really like as well. I'm refreshing my NIDs. Now's because of the changes. Yeah, Dorian. Exactly. Like, NIDs are great. I actually have a whole NID army that was basically a studio sent it to me, a little commission studio. I have the card on the NIDs. I should probably bring them out at some point. I play, like, smaller games with them. But just to, like, give them a shout out again, because they look really cool. And they're, like, now that troops are not a thing, you can kind of run battle like any army you want with, like, any units you want. It's actually a lot easier to build lists with that list as well. So, 2 Carnifexes with the Deathspitters, which go with Old One Eye. That combo is still very good. An Exocrine, good at killing rhinos now, right? 10, 11 Neurogaunts, 2 Neurolictors, a Norn Emissary, and a Screamer Killer. I'm surprised you didn't put Zoanthropes in. I think you would love Zoanthropes with your Neurotyrant. Like, Old One Eye and the Carnifexes is fun, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I feel like you could drop, like, a Neurolictor and the Neurogaunts. Like, how many points is a unit of Zoanthropes? Like, the Screamer Killer is a little redundant, I think. You know, maybe it's just because you have the model and it looks cool, but you could do, like, take the Screamer Killer out, the Neurogaunts, the Neurolictor, put in a big unit of Zoanthropes with the Neurotyrant, and I think that would be, like, at money. That would be excellent. But that's just a food for thought. Just food for thought. If you're taking a Neurotyrant, might as well take Zoanthropes. Take advantage of bringing it down, like Big Guns Never Tire, and the +1 to hit, and all this, like, cool stuff that actually makes Zoanthropes half decent. Yeah. You know, in my opinion. But thank you for posting that list, and I hope that gives you some food for thought. Gonna go take a practice bar exam. Have a good gaming weekend. No problem, Nikki. Good luck. in your exam. Good luck, good luck. Daniel Alfonso, next list says, some fun with the cousins. Inari, Ari, Ari. Fun times. So, Inari. Now, it's funny because 50% of all Aeldar lists are Inari right now, but 100% of all Inari lists take Scourge, because Scourge are amazing. There's a reason they went up in points. So we have Death Jester with Fate's Messenger, amazing unit. Death Jester without Fate's Messenger pales in comparison to Death Jester with Fate's Messenger, who is a monster, and I love him. We have a Farseer with just a Farseer. We have Ivrain, who's the Warlord, of course. We have a Falcon, Pulse Laser, Twin Circuit. Now, if you do I would highly recommend you take the cannon instead of the catapult on the Falcons. We have a Ranger unit, 2 units of Skyweavers with Zephyr Glaives and Haywire cannons, a big brick of Wraithblades. Oh, interesting choice there, with shields and axes. I'm curious about that. It's like almost 400 points. Is that because you feel like you just need something to like roadblock in the middle of the board? Like just something that can like tie up the enemy for a couple of turns? I would like to see some points as they were done in 9th. Some points as they were done in 9th. Some points for what? Big into with the Neurotyrant. Oh yeah, Big Guns never tie with his own throw up so jank. Eligibility shoots the unit's keyword. The penalty hits off the model's keyword. Yeah, exactly. There you go. I love the idea of that unit so much. I do love it too. So different points for Drukhari units in Inari. Oh yes, they should differentiate the points. Like if you bring Inari Dark Eldar, each unit's like 5 extra points or whatever. It's definitely not the same. Like a Scourge unit in Inari is definitely not a Scourge unit in Drukhari. A Reaver Jetbike unit with a single heat lance is way better in Eldar, in Inari, than it is in Drukhari, right? Like it's just infinitely better because of the reroll to hit and reroll to wound, you know? 10 Wraithblades, and then you've got a Beastmaster. Excellent. If you take Inari, you better be taking a Beast. Drazar. I think an Archon is probably better, but Drazar works well. Yeah, with Incubi, sure. Cabalites, excellent. You need them in there for sure. Has all the upgrades. Ravager, Scourge. The one thing you're missing is a Venom. I will tell you right now, drop a Ravager, add in a Venom. That gives you 40 points to spend. If you have any extra points, put it somewhere, you know. And then split that Cabalite squad. Please split that Cabalite squad. Of course, the list itself, you've got shooting, you got some combat, that sort of thing. The one thing I would say is this unit right here, the Wraithblades. That unit could be 5, right? Like could be 5 strong, and then I would put in like a Night Spinner or 2 D cannons. You know what I mean? Like, or a D cannon. Like that's where my brain would go. I'd be like, ooh, I'd like to, you know, especially with the 40 points you have left over from dropping a Ravager to put in a Venom, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking at. Is like, yeah, like try that. Why not try that? Another thing is you should, if you like Ivrain, right, really consider Ivrain, the Vizark, and a troop unit. That unit that has a 5-up Feel No Pain, a 4-up Invul save, brings back D3 models per turn with Ivrain, fights first with the Vizark, is a phenomenal, like a really good tactical unit when you're using something like a Phantasm to Phantasm forward to get within Heroic Intervention range, right? So Phantasm forward and then threaten a Heroic Intervention to somebody who's like wanting to charge, I don't know, any of your units. And all of a sudden you've got this big Harlequin unit that has fights first. It like gets bonuses when it charges. And then if it's still tied up in combat, it can fall back, shoot, and charge next turn. It's got a 4-up Invul save, 5 Feel Pain. Like it's just a fantastic unit that I think would outshine the Wraithblades. I love Wraithblades, but I feel like something like the Big Harlequin Troop is just, generally better in that sort of like capacity that it seems you're trying to use the Wraithblades for. I have to nerf Dark Eldar units because of yeah, they do, Piotr. They have to nerf the Dark Eldar units because of the Eldar Codex, right? It's like nerf by association, right? Putting Drazar in an Inari list is the funniest screw you to the lore. Yeah, I know. Because Drazar is literally hunting down Evrain. Yes, it is pretty funny, you know. But then again, they could have like, it was like the old fist bump when you had the fist bump between, what was it, the Necrons and the Blood Angels. They're like, oh, let's fight Tyranids. Fist bump, friends. Pew, we're allies now, at least for a campaign. Oh, did I not fix this up here? I did not. Okay, hold on 1 second here. There we go. Okay. Maybe he hasn't found her from the other side of the battlefield yet. That is true. They're just murdering the enemy as of, that point in time. Okay, CC asks, hey, Skari. Hello, CC. Thank TIA for your wisdom. I don't know what that stands for. This is awesome. Thank you. Thank a lot. Sure. There are many questions about this list, but I'm trying to go quite small with it, as I have limited options to practice before the London GT. When is the London GT? Like, how much time do you have to practice? Thanks in advance. Okay, that makes sense. See, my English not so good. My jank is to deploy Chosen and Terminators on foot to force opponents to drop assets to counter them. Then I can redeploy them with Huron's ability. Neat. Redeploys are very useful. I think even though they happen before the roll to go first, the ability to like overload one flank and be like, I'm going to see where you deploy and then go, where did you deploy? I'm going to move these units to this side now, because it's better or worse, right? Sorry, better for me, worse for you is what I meant to say. Questions. Number 1, should I swap a Vindicator for FF or 5 more Terminies? Should I... Forge Fiend is what I'm assuming that means. Should I add a 3rd Rhino to fit the Chosen in? Drop a Vindicator, use 110 points for Raptors and Bikers. Doing so would negate Huron's cool redeploy. Keep the Hellbrute. Do the Preds need this? Add a special weapon to Legionaries. Heavy weapon. Could utilize Rhino firing deck. They will be heading into melee, so maybe useless. Great trainer thought questions. So let's dive into your list, CC. So the list is Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Lord, Huron, Sorcerer, Terminator, and Warpsmith. Cultist, Legionnaire. So good amount of battle line troops, heavy melee weapon, plasma. Yeah, makes sense there. Rhino. Predator, Destructor, good. Terminator squad, I'm assuming that's a 5-man. Vindicator, Chosen, Hellbrute. Chilling with the Preds for lethal and sustained. Not a bad choice. Okay, so number 1. I like the Huron thing. If you're just using him for that, I don't think he needs to join anything. You can just go off by himself and be like a little action monkey. Just go around just doing actions. And if they want to shoot your character, be my guest. I love the Predator Destructors. I love the Rhino ratio. I don't think you need to change that at all. Vindicators are great. If anything, I would probably switch the Terminators for a 2nd Vindicator, especially if you're running the Warpsmith, which can then kind of like heal one and like boost it up, etc. If you just want to take the 1 Vindicator, I don't think you need the Warpsmith. You can drop the Warpsmith and put in, like, Raptors or something like that, like you said. Huron Blackheart, is the guy that goes around. And then the Lord himself can go with Chosen, right? Which means you could probably drop 5 Chosen and then use those points elsewhere, really, like, depending on how you kind of get that done as well. And all in all, if you drop like Chosen, you could put in like a unit of Bikers. If you drop the Chosen, and I think the key, what I would probably do is drop the Chosen and the Warpsmith, and that gives you like 195 points. And then I'd fill it with chaff, Raptors, Bikes, right? Raptors, Bikes, things like that. Maybe even drop 1 unit of Legionnaires or 1 unit of Cultists to kind of like squeeze in the 3rd unit or whatever. But just having more little units that can screen and do stuff, right? And just be annoying. And then making sure that that sort of like Terminator were chosen, sorry, the Terminators by themselves, but like with the the Sorcerer, and the chosen with the Lord are like your countercharge hammer units. And you just have to use them a little bit like more conservatively, but because you have a lot of shooting, you can draw the opponent in and then sort of counter. I think that would be the style that I'd be looking at with this kind of list as well. Carl says, I haven't got the zones built. Ah, well, that would make sense. So as soon as you get the zones built, then you could definitely add them into your Tyranid list, right? So that's kind of cool. But hopefully that gives you some food for thought there, CC. Now, I know you've got some practice to go before the London GT, but, you know, that's the key, is maybe do tweak a few things and then just, you have to play lots of games. Like, play as many games as you physically can before the event. Jimbo says, what do you think of World Eater Terminators? I've got a brick of 10. I think they're very handy. They are definitely outshined by like 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound. But it's one of those things where you put them in and it sort of changes the dynamic of the list. Like, most people prepare to play against World Eaters that are a bunch of 8-bound and Angron, right? So like, you switching a unit like that and going, I'm going to take 10 Terminators and deep strike them or rapid ingress them, and all of a sudden it opens a whole other version of playing World Eaters that nobody has sort of explored, right? And having some guns, right? Having the ability to like have a 2-up armor save or whatever, right? And then have a decent amount of wounds, and maybe it just opens up a different way of playing that maybe shores up like some matchups. You never know. Unless you try it, you will never know. Zint says, Huron bikes need new models. He's a cool piece of tech, but causes physical pain to look at. Oh, no, the old bikes, no, please. That's funny. But hopefully that gives you some food for thought, Cece. And make sure you keep me posted, and hopefully we can see some more of that as we go. Okay, Jim's list says, Hi, Scary. Hope all is good with you. Things are going fantastic, thank you. Voldus and the Grandmasters lead the 5-man units. One strike squad, giving them fights first. One Grandmaster has the Inescapable Wrath enhancement, so he gets +1 to charge. I did not do this. After disaster of the Stormraven experiment that's gone, as have the Dreadnoughts. Well, I'm glad you experimented with it, you know, and like, you tweaked it, you tried to make it work, it didn't work for you, so, you know, it's moving on to something different, completely okay, but at least you have like that practice, right? That thought process in your brain. So I've also dropped the Tech Marine. I've added 3 Imperial Knight allies. They have 9 OC, give me mobile, anti-elite, and vehicle shooting, plus they can take up screen duties in my deployment zone. Yep, that's a good reason to take allies. I have 3 Dread Knights on my painting table with conversion kits from Spiky Bits. Once they are done, the Knights will come out and they will drop in. I'm considering dropping the champion for an Eversur Assassin. I'll have 2 RTTs and some club games to test before my next GT. Now, this is key. I want everybody to take note of this. Super important. Play test games, especially like add an RTT, you know, test, practice. That's one of the best ways to see if your list works. I will always vote for an assassin, by the way. I think taking an assassin, awesome. Lone up, super fast. The Eversur has that Scout 9. Very good for like early game stuff, right? I really like that as well. So, Grandmaster Voldus, Grandmaster Nemesis, Force Weapon, Grandmaster, yeah, with an Incinerator. Another Grandmaster, a Brotherhood Champion, 3 Strike Squads, then we have 3 Terminator Squads, and a Dread Knight, and 3 Hellfrons. Neat. It's very straightforward. I like the MSU. Now, the key here is, can you kill vehicles, right? Can you kill vehicles and monsters? That would be the key. Right, so is it like, the Hellfrons are good, you know what I mean? But is it worth maybe trying to squeeze in another Dread Knight just to make sure you have, like you said, you have a couple paint on your paint table. So I guess once they're done, you have a little bit more wiggle room with that sort of stuff as well. And I think that you just have to make sure that you can kill like vehicles, right? If you can't kill vehicles, you can't get to the squishy insides. So a lot of folks use things like librarians to do mortal wounds, right? Because you have the little psychic power that does like basic straight up mortal wounds. That's a great way of doing it. But other folks use the Dread Knights or the Dread Knight Grandmasters because they have, you know, rerolls against monsters and vehicles, and they can get into position. Like, of course, they're very fast, like and adaptable. But you have to be able to kill transports to get to the squishy insides and kill like a knight, right? You have to be able to kill a knight chassis in one turn. So, not necessarily just in shooting, but in shooting and combat. So that's what I'm always looking for, you know? And can this army do it? Maybe, if they got into combat, but then you have to make what? A bunch of 9-inch charges if you teleported, right? So I think having a second Dread Knight would be good, and dropping like a Helvrin and then maybe tweaking a few things, maybe dropping one of the Grandmasters might help. You do have a lot of points in characters, so that's where I'd probably find the most points. And then maybe you only need 2 strike squads if you have so many Terminator squads, just so you can potentially sticky some objectives with the strikes. And that's my thought process. Like, boom, that's like my from that list, that's kind of where my head goes with that as well. Augustus on the chat says, what do you think of Death Guard? I find that with my Death Guard, I can give a hard time to any faction and win most of my games or get a close defeat on the ones I lost. Death Guard have that for them. They are an army that doesn't lose by a lot and has a good matchup into like most things. They have a couple of bad matchups, but they have a lot of things that are very good in Pariah. They've got good battle line. They have fights first. They've got flamers. They've got out-of-line of sight shooting. They have a decent Primarch if they want to go that route. They have access to fantastic allies with Chaos Knights or Chaos Demons. So they have one of the best army rules in the game, and detachment rules. Like that plague rule is fantastic because it's so adaptable to the situation that you need it in, right? Yeah, so that's what I think about that. Okay, moving on. Phil posted a list as well. Phil, I haven't seen you post a list in a while. It's awesome. I hope you're doing well, and I hope everything is going well with you, man. Thanks a lot for posting a list. It says, hello. I haven't played in a while. Yeah, makes sense. I want to take this fluffy Eldar Guardians, Psykers, and Wraiths list to my first couple of Pariah Nexus games. So it's a mix of battle line with character support, MSU for missions, a Wraith Blade Break, Eldrad and Warlocks, and a Falcon to point and click Doom on an enemy target with Vipers to strip cover, lots of Shuriken, and OK anti-tank, but mostly focusing on board control, multiple layers of the enemy to peel rather than lethality. Do you think this will reasonably balance a flavorful theme with playing the new missions well? So, Eldar in general do play Pariah well. They have the ability to score lots of points. The key is having little units that can do actions, right? So, speed, maneuverability, like, of course, durability has never been a big thing for Eldar, and they've always struggled with holding primary. However, with the addition of secret missions, Eldar are one of the best armies that can complete secret missions. So you can actually play a very conservative primary game and then try for a secret mission, right? And I think that's a very viable strategy, especially with something like Elves. So you have Autarch, who's a Warlord, Eldrad, Farseer, Spirit Seer with the Phoenix Gem. Yeah, the Spirit. I don't think you need the Phoenix Gem with the Spirit Seer. I feel like you could put the Phoenix Gem with the Autarch, you know. I think he's more valuable to kind of stand back up again. As for the Farseer and Eldrad, sure. I don't think you need both. I think you can get away with just one of the two. Now, the -1 to wound, though, is pretty good on the Wraith Blades, but you are like, it's a lot of points invested in characters that are very squishy, right? So I don't think you need to spend the points on the Farseer if you brought Eldrad. And then you could use those points on like 2 units of Rangers, and I think that would just be better for the game in general. Guardian Defenders with the Bright Lance, and then Storm Defenders with all the upgrades. So I'm a huge fan of the Guardian Defenders, and I do like the Storm Defenders. The sticky objectives is pretty good as well. I would just pick one or the other, to be honest. And personally, I prefer the defenders. So the way I like playing it is defenders with a regular Farseer. And then I give the Farseer the reader of the runes. So then he can like take one of the dice you have in the pool, re-roll it into something that might be useful, and then the defenders give you an additional dice because you hold your objective basically in your deployment zone. So it gives you like a little, you know, fate dice battery, which I think fate dice battery, which I think works really, really nicely in the new edition as well. Agent Dad says, hi, greetings from Hungary. Hello. I am hungry because I haven't had any breakfast yet. And that is your dad joke of the day. Can you suggest a good Custodes list for me? I'll play in a tournament next week. Should use Forge World units. Yeah, we can get to that at some point at the end of it. Just remind me before we finish this show here. Their ability is pretty cool. Lose 1, +1 to hit. Lose 6, +1 to wound. And charge, +1 to hit. Strength, and any other abilities from blessings. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, it's like, I think it's cool. The World Eater Terminators, you should try it out. So a Falcon with a Bright Lancer and Shuriken Cannon. Hornet, a single Hornet with 2 Bright Lancers. 2 units of... Oh, you already have 2 units of Rangers. Okay, perfect. 2 units of Vipers with Bright Lances. A Warwalker, Warp Spiders. 3 units of Wind Riders. Big Wraithblade Brick. Okay, so based on this, I would definitely try and squeeze in Swooping Hawks. Swooping Hawks, I think, are very good for basically Pariah. Now, this list will play nicely. You will have fun playing Pariah with this list. It's got lots of different things. You got the Wraith Blades that basically jump up. You've got -1 to wound from the Farseer. The Spirit Seer has a Spirit Gem, so it's harder to like single him out and kill him with a challenge, making the Wraith Blades better. I don't think you need the Spirit Seer either. I think you could get away with those points. So ultimately, you could drop one of the Farseers, a Spirit Seer, one of the units of Guardians, and then get a whole bunch of points that you could use on. I still think having a D-Cannon is very important, at least one D-Cannon or a Night Spinner. I do like the Swooping Hawks. I think they're great in Pariah for bouncing up and down. Warp Spiders are still incredible. Vipers are okay. I think one Viper with a Bright Lance will do the job that you need it to do, especially because you have a Bright Lance to stay far at range. As for the Hornet, I tend to think that currently a second Warwalker is better than a Hornet, because I love the 4-up invul and the -1 to be wounded and the scout move. But other than that, the elements are very good, and you've got so many different units. Your opponent's target priority is going to be a little tweaked, so it'll give you an opportunity to kind of like muddy the waters a little bit with that as well. But I hope you have fun with your new list. I hope that gave you some food for thought. Enjoy, play a couple of games, and then you'll kind of figure out which units you like and whatnot. But touch base, like come back after you play a few games and let us know how it went, or post it in the raid reports part of the Discord, where you can report your raids. You know, go in and tell us a little bit about your battles and how it went and stuff like that. A good anti-tank may be good. Anti-tank is always useful. On to the next one. Hit Suji says, I'm prepping for a major, and after testing a lot of variations, this is what I'm currently using. I recently added the Talos and Grotesques, and they add a ton of board presence and anti-infantry to the list. It's funny, I'm going to be taking a list with I'm taking a Real Space Raiders. So did I take a Sky Splinter? I'm taking a list with 9 Grotesques and 6 Talos to a tournament. Not this weekend, but next weekend. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun. I'm testing it out. So I cannot wait to come back with notes. It is a Beast Pack, a Nightmare Shroud Archon, an Archon, and Lilith. Make sure you make the non-Nightmare Shroud Archon your Warlord. 10 Cabalites, 10 Witches, 2 Raiders and 2 Venoms. Yep, makes sense. Big Brick of Incubi, 2 Chronos, 2 Talos, Big Brick of Grotesques, 2 units of Mandrakes, Haywire Scourge, 2 Scourge, 1 Ravager, and a Court. I like this list. This is it's a straightforward Sky Splinter list. It has my seal of approval. The double Chronos I think is fantastic. I love that you have the Venoms to split stuff. The Ravager is the one thing where I'm like, oh, sure. Like every time I see a Ravager, it kind of makes me sad. It's like, wah, 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 wah. If you had 5 more points, you could make that Ravager 2 units of Reaver jet bikes, and I feel that would be better in this style of list, personally. As it stands right now, actually, what I would recommend to build into your style is you drop the Ravager, drop a Chronos, and add 2 more Talos. Like, that is literally where I would find those points. And then I'd have 2 units to 2 Talos, 1 Chronos, right? I feel that would just be better, personally. But, take or leave it, and hopefully that kind of gives you some food for thought. But other than that, I would play with this list. It's a list that I think would work very, very well. So, Votan may be able to chew through the blades. Yeah, Votan, like, there's a lot of different things, Dorian, that kind of kill through stuff nowadays. Votan is like one of those lists where if you're in the open, they tend to just shoot you to death, so you have to hide behind a wall. It doesn't really matter how durable you are. Votan see you, Votan shoot you, Votan kill you. So you want to hide behind a wall. But hit Suji, thank you so much for posting a list. And yeah, think of that change. Other than that, you've got all the elements to make a good list. You've got stuff that does actions, you've got combat, you got shooting. So it works really well. Murva posted a list today. And then we have one more list after that, and then we are complete for the day. So looking to get into Sisters. I got the latest Battle Force as a starting point, and I've been math hammering hard to make a fun list. Okay, making a fun list with Math Hammer is a very interesting dynamic. He actually just needs 5 more points. Sorry, yes, 5 more points. Correct. Which you could do by dropping one of the... Like, I guess if you took... Like, over here, sorry, going back to your Hit Suji your list, you could take the Nightmare Shroud out, put in, like, Sadistic Fulcrum or whatever for 15 points, and then have 5 points left over with 5 points there, so it gives you 10 points, and then that Ravager is 120, so you could actually put a 3rd unit Scourge in, or 2 Reaver Jetbike units, or 2 units of racks, right? Or 1 unit of 10 racks. Like, there's lots of things you could do with that. Okay. Murva. Okay, so you've got tear into any of my unit and weapon choices. Okay, perfect. So Canoness. With the Retribution and Immolator, roll up big threats, jump out and melt. Rod of Office, Litanies of Faith. Yep. Cannon with Jump Pack. This is the Army of Faith. So your basic army with lots and lots of Faith dice. Canis with Jump Pack. Tactics Monkey peeking out early King. Kills. Ministorm Handflamer, Divine Aspect. Junith for the extra CP. Yeah, I like her. Morven, Palatine, Triumph. It's a lot of characters. That's the one thing I'd say is that's a lot of characters. You're spending a lot of points on characters. I don't think you need that many. Jean-Philippe, Scary on top. What's going on? Thanks a lot for coming to hang out. Really appreciate it, man. Battle Sister unit with a Condemner power weapon. Yep, makes sense. Make sure it's a plasma pistol on the Sister Superior. Battle Sister, bolt gun, melt gun, multi-meltar. Yep, with a Simulacrum. Yeah, don't forget they have their little cherubs as well. Make sure you use those cherubs. Hobo Bob says, hey, Scary, trying to choose between 2 units of Reavers or a 3rd unit of Scourge. Any advice? Depends on the rest of your list, but the 2 units of Reavers, I think, are better in Pariah right now, actually. Art Hobby says, going to WTC. Sadly, I am not going to WTC this year. I was selected for the team, but I recused myself because I needed to spend some time with family this summer. Immolator. A Rhino, a Castigator, Sacrosants, Dominions, big unit of Dominions. Was it Condemner? Dominions. Oh, 4 Stormbolters. I would split this into two units of 5. 1 Dominion squad is 10 strong, is 115 points. Oh, can you have them smaller? Oh, I guess they have to come in. Can they come in smaller than that? I don't know. Which is the one I'm thinking of? Exorcist, Paragons, Retributors, Seraphim, Zephyrim. So it's a little bit of everything. Like, this list is a mix of everything. It still has MSU. You have shooting, you have combat. It's not a bad list. The thing that I would recommend when you're starting to build a list is try and focus on a couple of things because you're trying to do a lot, which as you're learning a faction can be a little overwhelming. So I would sort of like narrow it down to do one or two things instead of trying to do everything, right? So like the Sacrosancts, cool idea, but I would sort of like drop them, right? I would take them off. I would definitely keep the Rhino, keep the Immolator for splitting the Battle Sisters as well. I would definitely keep the Triumph. She's amazing. The Palatine goes... yeah, you can run her whatever she runs, but I would probably run her in the Sisters more than anything. Morvenn Vol with the suits is amazing. Judith is good. And then the two Canonesses, I think, are like dead weight, to be honest. I don't think you need that. Like, if you drop this Canoness, well, actually, a single Canoness, her, to do actions and stuff, excellent, to be honest. I think she's actually really good. You don't really need her. You can drop her, drop the 75 points for the other unit. Then you've got, what, 155 points, which then, like, gives you another Castigator, right? So, like, you can amalgamate that into a second Castigator, which I think would be very, very useful. So something to keep in mind when you're building a new list. Like, kind of trim all the extra stuff and kind of focus on one or two things that are just generally better so that you can learn the mechanics of the list more consistently. And it'll help you learn it faster as well. But I hope that gives you some food for thought. And then last but not least, Swollen with a list says, I had some issues with my timer. Yes, time management, massively important. So I decided to remove one Scourge unit and add 3 Ravagers to make my game faster. Nice. Sure. Like, if your issue is time and you need to make a choice to get better at time management so you don't have to move your Scourge, move them back, move your Scourge, move them back. Excellent. I love that's a good enough reason to make any decision in the list. I want 10 Wraith Blades because I don't want to have to move a million units. Excellent choice. Because if you have more time, you might be able to think more about what you need to do, which then gives you a better tactical choices or whatever, which I think is useful. Now, before we go into this last list, make sure that you hit that like button if you haven't already. Leave a comment and tell me which is your favorite list so far, or you know, what sort of thing you like about Pariah Nexus. I'm very curious to hear all your thoughts. And a huge shout out, of course, to the channel Patreons, without whom none of this is possible. The link to the Patreon is in the description. It is the best way to support the channel and what I do. Without them, I wouldn't be doing this full time. So thank you to the Denizen community. I do this video for them every single week. We do have a TTS League for the Patreons. Signups will be starting next week. So if you want to play TTS with people from all around the world in a positive community, you can hop onto the Patreon. We do that every 4 weeks or so. Every 6 to 8 weeks, we start a new league. There's also a Crusade League that's happening right now where you can join in, and they're playing Crusade on TTS with folks from all over around the world. So the Patreon is a hub for community and not just Dark Eldar players. We have players from all factions, and it's a fantastic, awesome time. So make sure that you consider supporting. If you like what I do and want me to keep on doing it, the link is in the description and you can join today. It's like $5 a month for like the low tier if you just want to help out. Okay. Harborn says, got pulled into a meeting. Get out and Skari is still going. What a list crunch day. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Today's list crunch has been good. So let's dive into your list, Swollen. We have 3 Archons. Beast Pack, Lilith. Very straightforward with 3 Archons. There's not much like... It does what it says on the tin. Lilith, 10 Cabs, 5 Racks, 10 Witches. Then we have 5 Venoms, a Kronos, 3 units of Incubi, 2 Mandrakes, 3 Ravagers, and 2 units of Scourge. Yep, this list is fine. You have a Beast Pack, which makes me happy. This is very similar to my original oh my god, Sky Splinter list. Very similar. Triple Archon, triple Incubi, bunch of Venoms, Witches, Lilith. Like, very, very similar, and I know it works. Now, personally, I would take the 330 points from the Ravagers plus a Venom, or one of the Incubi and one of the Archons. Like, I would drop an Incubi, an Archon, and all 3 Ravagers, and I would put in 2 Void Raven Bombers. And that would be even less things to move around, and more shooting. But that's me, you know, like it's up to you, right? Really. Um, and then I would always, always, always recommend you make one unit of Scourge Haywire Scourge. Haywire is just clutch in the current meta. I think it's very, very powerful, very, very good. And being able to just ignore armor and vulnerable saves on vehicles is excellent. And toughness. Don't have to worry about toughness, armor, or invulnerable saves. Haywires just do straight up damage. They are very, very good into vehicles as well. Harborn with a shout out to the Scary Discord says it's an amazing place. Folks should join up in the excellent community he's built up. Well, I appreciate that, Harborn. That means a lot. By the time I'm through my elf pile and able to look at the Void Raven, Scary's going to have them nerfed 100 points. I did get a lot of messages from Drukhari players around the world that were like, should I get a second Void Raven or are they going to get nerfed? I'm like, I can't guarantee anything, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Games Workshop is ramping up the Void Raven production just because of Scary. Hey, they sold out after I won that GT with them. So, just saying. Just saying. There's a beautiful... Void Ravens are a beautiful thing, in my opinion. Okay, folks, that comes to the end of today's the weekly show, the 40K or the Warhammer Weekly show. And I will be back next Friday for all of the Patreons. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today on a Friday morning. I've got a long drive ahead of me. I will be doing more videos. I did not do a battle report this week, so this will have to do the stand-in for the battle report. So please share the video so the folks can like enjoy it and chat and that sort of thing. And a huge shout out to all of you for watching. And I've been Scary, your grateful host, signing off until next time. Scary out. The Dark Kin. Bye, everybody.